And I know in 2015, there was talk before the Paris Climate Conference about redefining climate finance, not as investment that only does work for climate change mitigation, but all money. All money should be climate smart and climate safe. And no money should generate climate damage. That should be our goal on climate finance. And, you know, we don't yet have clear science-based targets. We don't yet have clear plans for realignment, but the Glasgow Financial Alliance, in theory, says that a third of the financial wealth in the world will reorient towards this better future. So is it fair to say that on the way to COP27 and COP28, we need to figure out how that starts to actually happen, right? And maybe it's also fair to say from what you're saying that in some ways the global goal on adaptation needs to be something that speaks to the vulnerability of people, even in rich countries, but who are themselves vulnerable, poor, defenseless, that somehow it's people everywhere who are on the front lines that need help. And we have a collective responsibility to reduce the amount of threat that they face. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think so, because you see, say people of Puerto Rico, for example, or say people of Florida, Miami, or say Louisiana, they also need to empower, need to say raise their adaptation capabilities, adaptabilities. Not only say people of Manila, Metro Manila, or say people of Cebu City or Dhaka, or say Gabura in Bangladesh, or our coastal belts, or say Marshall Island, or say Hawaii, say Honolulu, all these say localities should be empowered. These people should be rescued, and that should be enshrined in our say global goal for adaptation, global goal for resilience building, global goal for livelihood security, health security, climate induced health security. And you are absolutely right that all our development should be climate smart. All our spending from public exchequer, from all our banking systems, from Bretton Woods institutions down to our central banks of very many countries should align with climate smartness, so that climate resilience is built in our national plan, built in our development plan, built in our national budget, our monetary policy, our fiscal policies, our revenue policies, in our agriculture policy to health policy, education policy. Everywhere it should be enshrined, built in.
So I'd like to build on what you've just said, and we've gone a little bit over, but we've been told we can go a few minutes over. So I'm going to let everybody have another chance to say a few words. But on this there've been a few questions that came in before we started. One was about what was achieved on carbon pricing, and I want to say a word about that while also addressing this question of where development finance can do something that's climate smart. The Glasgow Pact mentions special drawing rights as possibly being conditioned to do climate action, essentially potentially converting hundreds of billions of dollars in fiscal rescue money into green recovery spending, potentially. That's important. It has to become real, but it's an important signal. The other thing is Article 6.8 of the Paris Agreement. I think there's a lot of controversy over what it really means, but if if non-market approaches to international cooperation can move forward in an ambitious way, then that means financial regulations, trade conditionalities, banking regulations, new types of financial instruments, investments in nature, agricultural policies, all of those things without being emissions trading can start to pull together this web of climate action and make the money move, potentially. So there are now rules for doing that. And I think we could have a whole separate discussion about how far will that go and how fast. But to answer the question from someone who submitted it, it's not just emissions trading now. We have rules that talk about tax reform, tax policy, carbon taxes, and all of those things being enforcement mechanisms for climate action.